hear me? Got some new equipment here. I see Corridora got some lava scabers from local fish club on Sunday. That's so cool. My favorite Porcelio scaber form. I guess it's a locality rather than a morph, but it's awesome. Let's see. We have Zarathustra and the chipmunks. Und die chipmunks. Orange scabers in a nearby park. Oh, cool. So they could also be Trachelopus rathke, maybe. You can tell by checking out the pleopodal lung numbers. Oh, Zarathustra, and you have some baby guppies too. Awesome. Aunt Cindy Skinks is here. Hey, Aunt Cindy, it was really cool to see you on ISO Buddies with your talking about enrichment and skinks and everything. So cool. So I enjoyed that. Watched the whole thing. I was not there live. I usually can't make it live on Tuesdays at that time, but I was able to watch the recording and it was awesome. I see Chet is here as well. Rod is here. Let's see, Frank the Tank is here. Joseph Tavir is here. All right, hearing and seeing me. Fantastic. Oh, Corridor, that's a good deal on scabers, lava scabers specifically. Nice. Laura Taylor, hello. Gavik, I'm not sure how to say your name. Gamer5, hello. JH, joining us from Philly, awesome. Anthracite and Daniel Merlo. How are the blue beetles? I've got some blue beetles doing their thing. How am I feeling? I'm feeling better. Feeling better than I was. My knee's doing better. I, in general, am doing better. I'm super tired, but I'm doing okay. All right. Daniel joining us from Italy. That's awesome. That's great. That's amazing. And Ramingo as well. Critters are doing pretty well. You can see we've got the frog tank set up here. I'm going to do some clipping. This plant, let me see if I can move in just a little bit here. This plant has been going absolutely nuts. It came as a seedling, I assume, in with some Christmas moss, and it's been going crazy. So I need to cut it back because it's all over the tank. And Corridor, yeah, that makes sense. 6 duckies for 24, that's a steal even today. What is that, like 4, what? It's $4 a piece, am I right? Something like that. I don't know if I'm doing the math right in my head. Marimba Girl, thanks for joining. Even if you're doing yard work, that is fine. Glad to see you here anyway. Daniel Merlo, nobody's actually breeding blue beetles here, so I follow your playlist step by step and hope for the best. Yeah, and one thing I would say is most of that stuff in there, I mean, it all worked, of course, I produced some. I would definitely increase the proportion of insect food, like dead crickets and that kind of thing in there. Reduce the sugary stuff somewhat. That's something we found out since I made that playlist, and so I would tend to do that. But, you know, it worked, so. But I would say that you might increase your likelihood of success that way. Snailientologist is here too. Coro Works, welcome. I don't have a lot of experience with rough green snakes. They do actually occur we have green snakes here. They have the rough and the smooth. I think we have both in my state actually. And they do eat insects, but that is about the extent of my knowledge. I haven't kept them. I think it would be really cool to set up a breeding colony of them in a large arboreal sort of bioactive setup. That'd be fun. Because insectivorous snakes, that's, you know, not very many of those in the hobby. They do exist, but there aren't very many. So, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Corridor, yeah, I think scabers are a good choice. Lava scabers are maybe a little tougher, more challenging than some of the others, but they're not too bad. Oh, sorry to hear that, Domingo. I hope this stream helps too. Yeah, Daniel, my understanding from the study that I think it was Dean Ryder who quoted the study or whatever, and it's their diet is something like 60-ish% dried insects. They are omnivorous, but in the wild, that's something like they're eating about those proportions, so it makes sense. So the species of blue beetles, this Asbolus verrucosus, the blue death feigning beetles. Thereupon our nephew collecting snails, awesome. And thank you, Sandy, for the reminder about the likes. Getting a few more likes there. So anthracite exotics, any advice for my Armadillidium scabarimum sandstones? I've had them for 5 or 6 months, but no babies. Not sure what's going on. I can breed duckies, but these have me stumped. You know, I've never worked with that species at all. Worked with the genus before. I'm going to start clipping just a little bit here. I think I'm going to snip right there. This plant is going totally crazy. Snip right there. Maybe here. Here. See what that does. Play with that for a minute. Moving the flies. Okay. I'm going to put those over here. Let me see. Where are we? So a large bioactive setup with a green snake would be awesome. Yeah, I've heard of them. I heard of someone read about it somewhere on a forum back in the day, I think, when I was starting to get into mourning geckos, and they said they had I wish I knew what this plant was. Someone had a large vivarium with green snakes. I think they were smooth green snakes, if I remember correctly. And they may have been rough green snakes, I don't know. It was one of the two. They're closely related. They had them in a large bioactive vivarium with mourning geckos. And the snakes left the adult mourning geckos alone, but they did eat some of the hatchlings. And so it worked out pretty well because you had a constant stream of hatchlings in there. The snakes would occasionally get a snack, and the population of mourning geckos was kept under control in a somewhat natural way. I mean, rough green snakes and mourning geckos, their ranges don't coincide, so it would be a stretch to say that's a natural food item. But they did, it worked out for that system. Seemed like a pretty cool deal. I think that's probably enough clipping for now of that plant. I've got a dead fern frond in there. It's been weird. On this side of the vivarium, for some reason, low down in the corner, the ferns are not reproducing like I would like them to, and I don't know why. Okay, let's see. Timbits. Procrastinating doing your homework to watch this. I don't know if I can recommend that, but I'm flattered. I am reassured to know I am more interesting than homework. That's cool. At least my frog tank is. There's a frog, speaking of frogs, right there. So CoroWork says, my partner is interested in snake terrarium, but not going to be okay with even frozen pinky mites, so insectivorous snakes are the move. Well, it may be difficult to find captive bred green snakes. I'm not saying it's impossible. It might be a little bit of a challenge. But I hope you're able to find some. That would be really cool. There are other insect-eating snakes out there. And there are, of course, piscivorous snakes, fish eaters as well. So if fish eaters are not going to be a deal breaker, you could totally do a bioactive vivarium with some of the more piscivorous, well, there's a lot of garter snakes that will do well on a whole fish diet as long as the fish are thiaminase-free fish. You don't want to get fish high in thiaminase. That will cause a huge problem as a steady diet. But there are fish options that are thiaminase-free, like guppies are an example of those. Any of the posiliids, like the platies, mollies, guppies, those are thiominase free, and so you could technically do that. And especially if you varied it with things like earthworms, you could have some pretty healthy garters going if you varied the diet, had earthworms and whole thiominase free fish. Oh, Theropod Hunter, my son sent me a message about the unearthing the Arthropleura, which is awesome. So Daniel, let's see, have you worked with a Maroonella? A little bit with tricolor. A little bit with the tricolors, and I did get some babies, but I don't think I was keeping them right. I wasn't keeping them arboreally enough, I think, and probably with not enough ventilation. And so they eventually passed on. But I did get a couple of clutches of babies out of them first. Oh, Timbit's going to an invert expo. That's fantastic. I wish we had just straight invert expos. Not that I enjoy the reptile expos. Not going to take anything away from the reptile expos. I just think it would be cool if we had just some straight invert ones too, because invertebrates certainly show up at the reptile expos, but not quite the same. So garters would probably go after baby morning geckos, I guess. And assuming everyone's disease-free, that would be a thing. But I was thinking more of just if you wanted to do a bioactive setup, not necessarily with morning geckos, but a bioactive setup with snakes in it, and you didn't want the snakes to have to eat pinkies, then you could do garters. So just to clarify what I meant. You could do just garters in there, and they would eat the things like I was saying, the thiominase-free fish and the earthworms. So, do I keep any kind of Papuan python? No pythons actually right now. I'm really interested in the Macklot's python, and that's a species I wouldn't mind keeping someday, but even more so, I am interested in a super dwarf reticulated python, which my wife really wants one, and I really want to get her one. I think it would be amazing. It's not in the cards right now. I would need some more space and things like that, among other things, but someday. So Mojo Zoo, tips for breeding Florida blue garters. I have limited experience with breeding garters. I've only kept a few different types of garters and only bred one type. So I don't have any Florida blue specific information for breeding garters. I could give information about breeding garters in general, but not Florida blues. Well, specifically the Parietalis, Thamnophis sertalis parietalis. I am very hopeful that my Thamnophis sertalis melanistic face will be producing in the spring. Oh, Aunt Sandy's going to a chicken show. Cool. Do you have chickens, Sandy? I don't know if I knew that. We've got a couple of chickens. So, Chet, my pseudoscorpions, thank you for asking, but my pseudoscorpions actually crashed a while ago, which is pretty sad. I had 3 cultures going. And I think I was trying to figure out humidity requirements. And they are kind of drought resistant, but I think I got them a little bit too dry. But people to check with Invertebrate Dude, check with Roach Crossing. They work with pseudoscorpions. I'm not sure how many they have for sale at the moment, but they do work with them. So I'm going to take the iPad here off the tripod so we can get a little closer in and look at some stuff before I feed them, before I feed the frogs. It's kind of fun to go in really close and check things out. You can see the Java fern doing really well in the background, and the oak leaf ficus doing well back there. Okay, let's see where I am. I'm trying to keep up with the chat, but I'm not doing a great job. Retakes are illegal in Italy. How sad. So Timbits here in Montreal is going to be invert center with some reptiles as well. Cool. So Laura Taylor would prefer the garters over the green snakes, still in the planning stage. Okay, yeah. Well, I would say that the green snakes are not really good candidates for interaction. They tend to be kind of flighty in the limited experience I've had with them and what I've read and so on. Garter snakes would be a much better candidate if you want to interact with them, not just watch them. They're both pretty good display candidates, although the green ones are probably going to be harder to see. But as far as interacting, the garters are going to be better in most cases, I think. Domingo. Huh, interesting. Birds are a lot more common there. Mflater 74. Yes, I love lukes. In other words, that's the Dendrobates leucomelos is the scientific name of these frogs. So they're called bumblebee dart frogs is a common name, but among dart frog hobbyists, they're often known as lukes, short for leucomelos. There's Chumpbada, welcome. Ant colony, it is a fairly busy chat, isn't it? Oh man, I'm getting some glare on the glass. A little bit of condensation on the glass is kind of throwing things off, isn't it? So they are poison dart frogs, yes. I think I'm about ready to feed them too. Oh, quail, yeah, I could totally see doing quail, that'd be cool. I think you're right, Laura Taylor. I think they do know when I've fed them. Did we get a super chat and I missed it? We did. BD Lexin, super chat. Love our Maclots, but I've never owned a super dwarf for comparison. Oh, like it. That's fair, and good to know that. The Maclots, I became fascinated with the Maclots pythons based on All Canadian Reptile Girl's videos about them. She's got a few, and I've talked to her about them a bit, and they sound fantastic. But also, I've never met one in person. I've just, it's kind of secondhand, but they sound fantastic. But so do the super dwarves, and I have met super dwarves, and they also seem fantastic. They seem like very similar. They can be very similar. Maybe not always. Well, thank you, BD Lexin, for the super chat. I love it. Very helpful. So Daniel, yeah, I use purified water. Basically, I go to the grocery store and use the special filters they have that are steam distilled, reverse osmosis. They run a couple of different things on them, and it costs not very much. It's like 50 cents a bottle to refill your own, and so that's what I do. It keeps the water spots off the glass, because here the water is very hard, and if I didn't do that, couldn't even see these poor little frogs. Yeah, and it does come from usually carbonates in the water, from my understanding, calcium carbonate being one of them, possibly others, but calcium carbonate seems to be what makes most of the water spots up. Causes no end of trouble. That's why I use the stuff, and I just get a few jugs a week and use it for a lot of stuff. I don't use it to change my fish tank water because that would be prohibitively expensive, not to mention logistically challenging, but I do use it for vivariums and that kind of thing. Cool. So Timbits, I've had a jumping spider. What are you most interested in invert-wise? So Sandy Skinks, yeah, most of the grocery stores here have them, and it may just be because we have really hard water. I kind of assumed that was a thing you could just do at most grocery stores, but that may be more common here than it is in some places, because the water is like liquid rock here. Yeah, that kind of water refill station core works. They have some that do the big blue bottles, and then they have them so that they'll fit the big blue bottles, but you can also do a gallon or you can do a smaller container if you want as well. Okay, so it sounds like some of you have those refill stations and some of you don't. Like spike is a good idea. We've got 25 likes, 27 people in the chat, looks like right now. Okay, so Timbits, millipedes or desert setup with a variety of beetles. Okay, well, I'll tell you right now, depending on the species, because there are millipedes that are fairly active, surface active, especially as adults. So that's something. But some of the millipedes are not going to be terribly visible. They're going to spend a lot of time in the substrate. Others will be more visible, and some of them does depend on age and different things like that. Like some of my favorites are things like ivory millipedes, flame leg millipedes, tend to be pretty active and visible as adults during the day. Some others are also like that. Some are much more likely to be hiding during the day. It also depends on population density. Something like why can't I talk? Bumblebee millipedes may tend to burrow a lot during the day, but the more you have, and they do breed readily, the more you'll see. So you could have a 10-gallon or equivalent size vivarium, and if you have 100 millipedes in there, you could do that and not be overcrowded if you're replacing the substrate often enough, and you'd see some pretty much all the time. So there's that. Other millipedes, you do your research on the specific species, and because you're going to get some variety of surface activity and different things like that, as well as ease of care, size, all that stuff. Desert setup with a variety of beetles. In the crepuscular time, so dawn and dusk approximately, you're going to get a ton of activity and it's going to be awesome. Some of the coolest and most active setups you're going to get, only rivaled perhaps by the aquatic beetle and aquatic insect tanks that are going to be super active all the time. But the desert beetles in the evening and in the morning are going to be pretty darn active and really fun. Plus you can get a lot of variety, of course. It sounds like you've maybe seen some of my videos about this. Velvet ants are super cool. They're not generally available in large numbers. I never keep large amounts of them, but I do keep them once in a while. I have a couple right now. But of course you can't breed them in captivity. The sting, as far as them being aggressive, they're not at all aggressive. They're not even particularly defensive. I have never been stung by my pet ones. When I was a kid, about 10, I was messing with a wild one, out in the wild, and it stung me because I was messing with it. But I was really messing with it, so you're unlikely to be stung by one in captive care unless you're really bothering it. So I don't think that's so much the consideration, but the fact that, with a lot of the beetles, you can captive breed them, and people have started. I've bred a couple of different species of desert beetle now, and other people are doing it a lot too, so there's that. So Patreon, Daniel Merlo. In most of my videos, if you go, maybe not the live stream so much, but in most of the videos, if you go into this description, there's a link to my Patreon, and at the end of most of my weekly posted videos, there will be a Patreon link in the last 20 seconds that you can click on. I would love to have your help. I'd love to have you join in. That would be great. Oh yeah, and Tima, that's a thing too. Dry ice is super common here. I don't know how common it is in other states, but apparently not in Alberta. So Snaeleontologist. The orthoporous seem to be kind of like that. Like in new enclosures, they might be more active for a while, and then they might be more fossorial for a while, and it might be cyclical. I'm still trying to figure out the orthoporous. I have some experience keeping them, but yeah, not exactly sure. So Timotheos says, I have an issue with moldy substrate, sort of dumping it out and starting over as a way to mitigate the mold without drying out my substrate too much. Typically, if your substrate is moldy, I'd like to know a little bit more about your setup. Like, what is the setup? What substrate is it? It might be something to do with husbandry. It might be something to do with composition of the original substrate. So let me know a little bit more about that. Maybe I can give you some more information. Yeah, the carbonated watermelon. I remember the first time we figured that out, that you can carbonate fruit with dry ice. Ended up accidentally carbonating some grapes one time by keeping them in a cooler with dry ice, and that was pretty fun. So Bioscapist, Ivory millipedes had babies in my 2-gallon glass enclosure. I need a bigger enclosure. Eventually will. You might not initially if you have a really good substrate in there, but you will eventually because those babies are going to outgrow it pretty soon. I'm going to add some more fruit flies. I'm adding dusted both melanogaster and Heidi fruit flies to the enclosure. Just kind of doing it a bit at a time. The frogs are keeping the frogs busy, kind of enriching to have them spread over time, not just get them all at once. Maybe they have to hunt a little bit more. That's my thought anyway. So yeah, Bioscapist, I would definitely think about upgrading pretty soon. One thing is that the babies, when they're really small, you don't want to move them too much when they're really small. I'd wait till they put on a little growth. And I wouldn't put them in straight into an enclosure with none of the original substrate. I would move a good quantity of that original substrate over to the new enclosure, maybe even all of it, and add some new substrate as well. Because the microbial populations, pH and so on, you want something that's not going to shock them. And the microbial populations seem to be kind of important for the babies, especially as they're getting their gut flora established. So I would recommend moving some of that substrate over. Daniel, thank you for joining the Patreon or getting into it with the purpose of joining it. And thank you, Frank, for posting. Frank's great about posting the links. Thank you to all my mods, in fact, for being on top of that kind of stuff. So Corridora. Yeah, a lot of those little Julid millipedes will breed like crazy. So it's kind of fun to watch that. I'm sorry the adults passed away, but at least you got the babies. Oh yeah, the geckos are going to come after the flies too. There's a good number of geckos in here. Let me see if I can zoom in on some of these geckos. There's one, it's right in the middle of the screen now. Not quite a hatchling, maybe about a month-ish old, right here. Oh, Daniel Merlo, welcome. You joined it says you joined the memberships. That's fantastic. Appreciate it. I don't even know how many morning geckos are in here. I actually thinking I need to thin them out because I've got 2 adults and probably at least half a dozen babies. I don't know exactly. So welcome, Daniel, as an isoporter. Love it. Geckos have such sassy tails. Right you are, team. I love that. That's a good way to put it. I used a piece of wood in the scape, which is now a few years old, and although it started to hold, the wood has begun to rot and the millipedes live inside it. Cool. They're probably eating a lot of that rotted wood. Properly aged, properly decomposing wood is one of the key food items, as many of you probably know, for millipedes. And it depends some on the species, but a lot of them really depend on that as an important, a staple component of their diet. That's what I want to put it. So yes, Daniel, I do keep currently 1 species of amblypygid. I have Damon diadema. Damon diadema is the 1 species I have kept. I am looking into getting some more. There's a local guy here who is working on breeding some others. He's got females with egg sacs, and I'm looking into getting some more of those. But I'm also working on breeding mine. I have a male and a female. They're mature enough to breed, and I'm working on it. So hopefully I will get them breeding soon. That would be fantastic. So let's do a little bromeliad sweep of the vivarium before we go too much further, because that sounds fun. Sounds fun to me anyway. Hope it sounds fun to you. Maybe we can do a plant tour a little bit. Not everybody's seen it. So over here on the right, we've got what I believe is a rabbit's foot fern. We've got tons of this plant, Ficus quercifolia, and that is oak leaf fig, also known as string of frogs. Got some Java moss mixed in, or Can't remember if that's Java moss or Christmas moss. It's one of them. Ton of the string of frogs growing. This is a redbird bromeliad with a pup in the back. See the pup? Love it. There's this unidentified plant which is taking over things right here. I don't know what it is. Showed up with some Christmas moss. This Neoregelia bromeliad is a gremlin. It's called gremlin. It's the cultivar. You can see this pup. There's the parent plant in the middle there, and to the left there, there's a pup. There's some more of the ficus. There's another, this is called Chiquita Linda, and it was not doing so well, but it seems to be bouncing back. And then I'm going to show you a little bit more inside the vivarium. It's going to be easier to see things, because I don't think I've shown you everything. This is some lacer, Windelove Java fern. This is live sphagnum moss. That's what it looks like when it's live. There's different types of sphagnum moss, but this particular type looks like this when it's live. There is some Christmas moss and Java moss growing over here. I think both of them are growing kind of together. The Java moss is the more leggy, skinny version, and the Christmas moss is the thicker, fluffier version. And then there's this plant. This plant showed up in the moss, has been growing pretty well. I took a cutting of it, and now I put it over here, and it's growing in a patch too. I've got some more mosses growing everywhere. There's some more Java fern growing down there. And sorry, that's kind of jerky movement there. And there's various mosses and whatnot growing everywhere. But yeah, it's doing pretty well. Redid the vivarium a few months ago. Been trying to keep on top of pruning and whatnot, and I think it's doing well. So I'm going to put this back here onto the stand, and I can check out the chat and see what I missed. And I put the lid on and put the light back where it goes. There we go. Let's see. Checking out the chat. Okay, so Daniel has a male Phrynis white-eye. They're so fast. Blink it, you missed it. Yes, and many of them are like that. That's really cool. And Laura Taylor, yes, I do actually sell the geckos. I generally have some available because I have three vivariums with morning geckos in it. Two of them are just 4 morning geckos. They have plants in them, but they're morning gecko bioactives with no frogs. And then there's this one that has some morning geckos. It's principally a frog enclosure though. So yeah, I will be doing that. So it could be that the wood pellets were too wet. It also depends on whether or not they were fermented first, because the oak wood pellets can be great for isopods and millipedes when they are properly fermented. Basically when they have been made into flake soil. If they haven't been, they're not necessarily bad for them, but they're not really good for them, and they can tend to mold more. So that could be what's going on. I mean, Josh's frogs, I would imagine they would be fermented already though, because they look into stuff like that. So I would say, or did you add the oak wood pellets to the Josh's frogs isopod mix? That's probably what happened, huh? I used to put the wood pellets straight into my mixes after soaking them with water, and I no longer do that. I don't think it is, some of my older videos talk about doing that, but I don't do it anymore because without fermenting them, it's not really very useful. So now I think I've understood now. Okay. So Gamer5 started up 2 new cultures of milkbacks and powder oranges. That's fantastic. Yeah, I think you are addicted. That's not a bad thing with isopods as long as you don't overdo it. So Rod Sprague, not hallucinating lizards. Yep, there are geckos in with the frogs. Number of morning geckos in here. So Daniel Medal had a female Euphrynicus monica, but last 2 summers went so much hot and I couldn't keep her cool enough apparently. Oh darn, that's so sad. And yes, Tima, that Small bromeliad chiquita linda basically means pretty girl, yes. Or cute little girl, something like that. So theropod hunter, I've noticed the bromeliads need tons of light, which I do have. I've got this Tinkman Herp thing light bar that I got from the Biodude, and then I've got this was just a lesser, it's less powerful, but it's supplemental, so don't worry about it too much. But this is a strong light. I've got them both on there because the bromeliads really suck up light. Maybe you're already doing that, but they do love it. They love that light. There's a gecko right near the middle of the screen. I don't know if you can see it. So Daniel, I see what you mean. It does kind of look like a Selaginella to me too, and maybe it is. I've been wondering what it is. Close up to me, it doesn't quite look like a Selaginella, although it's reminiscent of a Selaginella. I'm just not sure. Most Selaginellas have the paired leaves on each side of the stemlet, if that's the term for it, but this doesn't seem to do that the same way. I don't know. Could be. So Jerry Asano, what's your favorite type of morning gecko? I like the yellow bellies just for the splash of color that they have. Oh, Daniel, yeah, the snakes are breaking all the leaves. I think that's the thing with snake vivaria is that there's a subset of plants you can keep with them. Really super tough plants, usually. I see Schunmeister is here. Great. Solarity, do you think garter snakes are good beginner snakes? I do. I think they're one of the best. And it does depend on what you're doing, but I have helped people get into snakes with garters. Garters were not my first snakes, but they were close. I think they are really good beginner snakes. And of course it does depend on the type. Some types are easier to keep and maybe more friendly, more or less resilient, more or less likely to be calm. Like, from what I understand, I've never kept the California red-sided garters, but from what I understand, they tend to remain more defensive, whereas the red-sided garters, not the California ones, the Parietalis as opposed to the Infernalis, are much calmer, and I had very good experience with them being very calm and docile. So I think they are. We just got a super chat from Theropod Hunter. Thank you. My Cubaris species, Ishigaki Island males tend to mate perpendicular to females. Is this normal for Cubaris? Because I've never observed Cubaris mating. You mean, do they just tend to hang out like that? Or do you actually observe them appearing to inseminate their females that way? I haven't worked with that species at all, so there's not a lot I can say about it, but I'm just trying to make sure I understand what you are observing and what you are describing. But I appreciate the super chat. That's awesome. Okay, one more dose of dusted flies, folks. Don't want to drop them right on you. Letting the extra dusted, extra supplement down there. I think the isopods come up at night and eat it all. So Bioscapist. My favorite are Lygodactylus williamsi and Phelsuma clemeri. Both species I love a lot. I would be super happy to keep either one of those, I think. Some of the coolest geckos out there are the day geckos, and the Lygodactylus williamsi is the electric blue day gecko. The males are very, very blue. And then the Phelsuma clemeri are sometimes known as the neon day gecko. They're very small but very brightly colored. Beautiful little things. Okay, Daniel. I think we have the 110 volts here. Pretty sure that's what we use. I see what you're saying, Theropod Hunter. That sounds like mate guarding, which can happen pre-mating or post-mating, and the purpose is probably what you would imagine it would be, and that is to prevent other males from mating with the female, so that the male can hopefully ensure that all of the eggs are fertilized by him and no other. So they will remain on the female to protect her in the sense of keeping other males from mating with her before they mate, and then they seem to do that after. So that's probably what you're seeing. And they will mate guard for quite a long time. Most isopods will do it. And since mate guarding doesn't necessarily need to, they don't need to be in line with the female to effectively mate guard, the fact that they do it perpendicularly totally makes sense. Oh, and Daniel, yeah, I've heard of Candoya. I think it was, which podcast was that I was listening? From the Ground Up podcast, I was listening about Candoya. It sounds like a fascinating genus to keep. Yeah. And I see what you mean about the bizarre position for mate guarding. I just feel like all it has to do is be effective in keeping the other males off. And it seems like that does. So weird, but true. Okay, I'm going to take this off the tripod again so we can get in closer and see some cool stuff. By the way, I got to give a shout out to all my patrons again. I usually give patron shout outs in my long format posted videos, but my iPad recently, the one I had since 2016, that I've been making YouTube videos with every week since then, finally just died completely. Like it would not work at all. Not like it slowed down, it just died. Dead as a doornail. And so I ended up buying a refurbished 2016 model to replace it, and I was able to do so because of Patreon. So really appreciate that. Super chats help too. Just watching also helps too. So I appreciate everybody. Memberships help a lot. Everybody helping, I really appreciate it. But just very cool. I would not have been able to do that, but because of your help, I did. Yeah, that's a species I wouldn't mind trying to keep sometime. They sound really fascinating. How big do they get? The Paulsoni, the Candoya Paulsoni, how big do they get? It's been a while since I listened to that podcast. Just in case anybody's curious, the logo, the classic frog logo that I have on some of my shirts and that they used to be the logo for the channel. This is the frog right here. The very frog from which that came. Smaller than a python regius, a royal python or a ball python. That is cool. Yeah, that sounds quite intriguing. Oh, here's a fly. See, this is the problem. The flies get the dust from the supplement all over the glass, and then it's a mess. It's harder to see. Let's see if I can track down. Oh, just saw a gecko grab a fly, munching on it. She's got it in her mouth. There she goes. Sorry that it's kind of fuzzy through the glass and a bit shaky. Oh, Laura Phillippe's here. Awesome. Welcome. So 3 to 5 feet. Yeah, that's not bad at all. The males only eat about 3 to 4 times a year? Seriously? Wow. Let me see if I can cut the buzzing. Let's see if this helps. I just took the charger out. Let me know if that makes a difference with the buzzing. Okay, yep. I don't know how long the juice is going to last. We'll see. But at least the buzzing stopped, right? That's something. I'm going to try to look from up above here. It's so much clearer when the glass is not in the way, right? Okay. So, Mr. Black, how often do you miss this vivarium? usually daily, sometimes twice daily to do it by hand. I have the kind of the pump mister, the one that holds like half a gallon of water and you pump it up and spray it. In fact, I usually have one of my kids do it once a day and then I'll do it again if it needs it. Works pretty well. I do need to actually go in and siphon out some from the bottom because it's starting to get to the dangerous point where the drainage area is filling up. So, how loud does the dart frog sing? You can hear these from. I would say you can be outside of the room and hear them. They're not super loud. They just sound like a very trilly bird-like sort of sound to them. It's kind of a. I'm out of practice, but. That's kind of the sound they do a little bit. And you can hear it. If I'm in the bedroom, I can hear it. They haven't been chirping as much recently. They were doing all spring and summer, chirping a lot, or calling a lot, the male was. Haven't been doing it as much lately, which I guess makes sense. Temperatures going down, lighting, the light day cycle is shorter. So Laura Taylor, with the morning geckos that are in here, I just give them whatever the frogs get as well as some CGD, the crested gecko diet. So they get both of those, and they seem to be doing pretty well on that. I'll put the crested, it's not on a super rigorous schedule or anything, but I'll put a little thing of crested gecko diet in there once or twice a week, and they'll eat it. And sometimes, it's might be a little more or less often, depending. Let's see. So Chet has a battery-powered field sprayer, a lot easier than constantly pumping. I think it costs about $100. Okay, well, yeah, if that works for you, that seems like the convenience is rather nice. It would be nice not to have to pump it up all the time. Diotaro, no problem. So sorry to hear that your puppy broke her leg. I hope she's okay. How did she do at the vet? Timo, you can hear your morning geckos, but your husband can't. I can definitely hear ours chirping once in a while. So theropod hunter, let me go back. Have a philodendron species French Guiana. Ooh, what does that one look like? I don't know if I know that one. Ooh. Has to have surgery on Thursday. Oh. Did they put something on it, like a splint or something like that for now? Theropod hunter, T-shaped leaves. Oh, cool. I'd like to see that. I think maybe I've seen that actually somewhere. Tropical plant shop or something. Or maybe it's at the aquarium has this huge jungle room. I wonder if that's where I've seen it. It only had her 3 days when it happened. Oh. That makes the transition a little rougher, doesn't it? Oh, well, I like that. Daniel, I like that, what you said there. Helping people to have living pieces of natural art in their homes. Make creatures that most consider insignificant, full of charm, and inspire a lot of people. That's awesome. I love it. Yes, Loveland Living Planet Aquarium, Tima. I gather you've been there. Oh, look at this. I love it. They're all sitting on their cocoa hut under the stump. That's rather picturesque there. I need to screenshot that. I love it. Oh, wow, she's outgrowing the cast. Oh, well, the male had to jump out of the tableau. That was so cool. Yeah, some kind of group meeting. Got to see how we can get that big giant to drop more flies. He stopped doing it. What do you think? Take any and all suggestions. Going to an aquarium in Japan with a similar tunnel. Cool. I do love their tunnel. It's pretty fun. I was there, when was that? Still warm outside. Thinking maybe it was September, August? I don't know. That was the last time I was there. They have this cool tunnel where you can be surrounded and under various sea life organisms, including sharks, rays, all kinds of stuff. And I'm sure there are other aquariums that have similar things, but it was so cool. So Yotaro, yeah, I really hope she does recover quickly. It's hard to, especially when they're young and they did, you know, they heal quickly, which is good. But all these new things, like they're in a new home and then this happens, and that's got to be a shock. But I'm sure you're providing the best possible home, so I'm sure that helps. Spending 3 hours with your spiders, that's hard to beat. You know, I got to do a presentation the other day. When was that? It was about a week ago. I think it was last Wednesday. And it was so fun to bring Super Grover, my Brazilian blue beauty tarantula, and introduce people to a blue tarantula. She ate for everybody, and just introduce people to how beautiful they can be. It's so fun, so eye-opening for people to realize how beautiful they are. Love that. I love that too. Thanks to you, to Clint, to a lot of content creators like Serpa Design, thousands of people one day walked out of the door and started looking under small rocks or twigs or lifting pieces of bark. You know, that reminds me of a fun story. When I was with, I was at the Clint's Reptile Academy, not this past summer, but the summer before that, I think it was. Yeah, it was. I was there, and Clint's kids were there, and we were, their youngest was, she must have been, I don't remember her exact age at the time. She was around 2 years old or so, and she was flipping rocks and looking for bugs and talking about it, and it was so cute. So I thought, you know, she's been raised right. And our kids have always done that too, and it's beautiful. Oh, Zero Cool's here as well. Ooh, oh, that's rough to visualize. Jumping off the back porch step and crashing into the pavement. Ow. She apparently has not yet learned her lesson. Lots of enthusiasm. We only have about 7 minutes left. We have about 30 people. 41 likes. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I won't complain about that. Oh, Marimba Girl. Awesome. Back with us. Planted some sweet peas. Fantastic. The little bit of a juxtaposition between the traditionally cute pet and then having 20 spiders. I think spiders are super cute myself, but I can see how that could be a little bit of a surprise to a lot of people. Depends on the spider. Some spiders are cuter than others, but I think Super Grover is super cute. I think tarantulas in general, a lot of other spiders are pretty cute. Jumping spiders. Wow, that's quite a mix there, Yotaro. Australian Shepherd, Blue Heeler, and Lab. All energy. Not too surprising. I love it, Daniel. You were, when you went out, the kid went out in the morning, came back in the evening looking like Bear Grylls. Yep. Yep, I would go spend hours out in wetland areas or in the desert, and just loved it. And I would, in the forest, whatever. Poecilotheria metallica, or Poecilotheria metallica, however you pronounce it. They are beautiful spiders. So beautiful. I do love velvet spiders too. I miss mine. I want another one. I want to get a female this time because the males don't live very long. He was pretty. I didn't get him as a mature male. I got him as a spiderling. He molted a couple of times, I think. And by the time he had molted a couple of times, he was a male. Fairly small male. So beautiful. But didn't last very long after that, once he became a mature male. So I need to get a female. maybe one of the Moravicus, I think. Or I've heard the Moravicus can be a little bit more visible. Is that the one I'm thinking? The Erisus Moravicus are a little bit more visible. Wow, Marimba Girl, a cat fell from the second story. Cats seem to do better with that kind of thing, don't they? Yeah, you got some cool amphibians in Italy, right? Velvet spiders are becoming more commonly available now and a little cheaper. It used to be it was hard to find them under $100, and now you can find them for about 75 US dollars, approximately, which is not super bad, but it's not, not something I'm just gonna make an impulse buy on either, or not that I should impulse buy anything alive, but just saying that that would be something I'd have to plan for and prepare for financially, as well as making sure I had a good home for it. I think I have everything I need to take care of one. I have enclosures, I have live food sources that I breed, and that kind of stuff. So I think I'd have everything I need for another velvet spider, but not $75 I can just go spend on it. So, and then you got shipping too, so $75 plus the shipping. There's the trio again all together. And Yotra, I'm glad you're here too. Sending my best wishes for your little puppy. Oh, I remember when I was in Italy seeing Buffo viridis. I think I saw both Buffo and Buffo viridis when I was there. At a park in Rome, I saw the viridis. I saw the others, the Buffo in various places, including Rome, but other places as well. Josh's frog says a sail on him right now. Might have to check that out. Well, everyone, it's just about to the wrap-up time. Does anybody have any requests of what we look at here in the tank or anything like that? I know we've been focusing on the frogs. Had a little bit of a tour. I want to see if we can see. Oh, there's an egg. I think it's a slug or a dud egg from the morning geckos that was laid recently. There were a couple of them. There's one of the adults right there hanging out behind the bromeliad pup. Right behind the pup there. You can see her. They hang out up there a lot. There's usually two of them. I don't see the other adult right now, but they're very often hanging out up there. Thank you, Daniel. If I ever make it out to Verona again, especially in those months, I will take you up on that. That is generous of you, and hopefully I get out there. Haven't been back for a long time, but I spent a few months in Verona. Loved it. Beautiful place. And I've heard of that expo. I used to watch Terrarium Channel, the Italian guy, Luco, what is his name? Luca Di Grassi or something like that, who had that channel that he would take you to expos and do things like that. Oh, so what just happened, and it's pretty good timing, is my main light turned off, and now we just have the supplemental light, which will now ramp down over the next 15 or 20 minutes slowly, so the frogs don't have an instant sunset. It's a little bit more natural. It sets a little more slowly. But it's still fairly bright in here, and the camera, of course, the iPad is compensating for the change in light. But it's significantly dimmer, and it will dim progressively over the next few minutes. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. And I appreciate you all being here, and I appreciate the super chats, and we'll catch you all later. Have a good one.